Hi everyone, welcome to video 1 of Unit 3. This is my favorite unit. I love the muscles, the physiology behind them. It's his favorite unit too. Students tend to do pretty well on this test, so let's move right into it. So whether we're looking under a microscope, so looking at a histological sample, or running some tests on this, we have these criteria to classify muscles. So if you have no idea what your sample is, these are what you can look at to classify your muscle. So whether it has striations or not, your options are yes or no. And this is all review. We did this whenever we did tissues, and we talked about our different types of tissues, epithelial and connective, muscle and nervous. So we've already done this as just a quick review, and I want to give you guys a mental map to use on the test. So, striations, yes or no? Nervous or conscious control? I like the term conscious control because I think, do I have to think in order to use this muscle? So this is either voluntary if you're choosing to make this muscle contract, or involuntary if you're not thinking about it. And then your last one is this number of nuclei, and your options are either uninucleated or multinucleated. So uni or multinucleated. So sweet, now we have some different criteria, but now we have this unknown sample, and we want to use these criteria to classify this muscle. So here's our types of muscle that we'll be taking a look at. And we want to, this is a mental map I use on the test. I think it's a great one because it gives you all the information that you could need to answer about like appearance of muscle. So skeletal, this first one, does it have striations? Yes. If you think about someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, whenever he flexes, you can see those striations, and we'll talk about the anatomy of that later on, how we get those striations. Conscious control, voluntary control, or involuntary control. Do you have to think to walk? Yes. So this is voluntary, nervous control. Number of nuclei. We talked about it briefly a few units ago, how these skeletal muscles fuse together to make these single long fibers. I'll draw some pictures later on, but this is the only one that's multinucleated because you have these fusions of these cells. Fusions of cells means fusion or multiple nuclei. And then these cardiac. Do you have striations? Yes. Do you have to think to make your heart beat? No. So this is involuntary. And then number of nuclei, remember skeletal is the only with multi because of those fusions of skeletal muscle cells. So smooth, striations, no, that's a big indicator. Striations, smooth. Smooth doesn't have striations, that's why it's classified as this. Do you have to think about moving food from your stomach to small intestine? No, so this is involuntary muscle contractions. And remember, only skeletal has the multinucleate. Okay. This next one is properties of muscles. So these are, no matter whether you have the skeletal, cardiac, or smooth, they all do certain things. You can expect this to come out of these muscles. So this first one is excitability. So what this is this can respond to a nervous stimulus. So we say that muscle tissue is excitable tissue. If you send it a nervous impulse, it's going to do something. What is that something that it's going to do? It's going to contract. So it is contractility, the ability to contract. So let me put up some definitions. Excitability. This is the ability to respond to a stimulus. And what is that stimulus? Typically a nervous impulse. So ability to respond to stimulus. And that stimulus is normally a nervous impulse. Now, if you've ever been to a PT or you've ever been to a chiropractor, maybe you've seen that muscular electrostimulation therapy where they have the pads and they put them on your skin and then they turn that knob and it makes you contract. Remember, all of this is just running off of electricity. Our body's messages are sent through these action potentials, these nervous impulses. So this is just electricity. So we can do an external form of electricity through those pads and those machines, and that will give us this idea of contractility too. So when we excite the muscle, when we stimulate this muscle, it's going to contract. What does it mean to contract? Contract does not mean movement. Contracting does not mean heat. Those are both results of contraction. So to contract a muscle means to shorten and thicken this muscle. Go ahead and put your bicep all the way out, so it's 180 degrees. And then go ahead and flex that bicep. You'll see it shorten and thicken. It will widen, like it will get taller, but then it will shorten as you flex that muscle. So shorten and thickening of fibers. What results from contraction, movement, and heat? We talked about that last unit. All right, extensibility. So this is the ability to stretch beyond normal position. So if you go ahead and stick out your arm again, that 180 degrees, as you flex that bicep, if you look at your tricep, and you have to have your shirt off for this or just expose your arm, as you're flexing that bicep and you're seeing it shorten and thicken, if you look at your tricep, you can see it extend. You can see it lengthen. So this is the ability to stretch beyond normal position. And we'll talk about this later on when we get into muscle mechanics, but to be able to contract that one muscle, the other muscle, so if you're contracting your bicep, if you're flexing that bicep, you have to flex that tricep. It's just the physiology behind it. We'll get into it next week. And then elasticity. Think about a rubber band. It's elastic, so as you stretch that rubber band and you let go, it will pop back into place. So this is the ability to return to the original position. So if you're stretching beyond that normal position, we want to be able to return to the normal position, because then maybe we need to contract or shorten and thicken that muscle. So this is the ability to return to normal position. Let's see if I can get a picture of this since we don't have a video. If I have my arm, let's just say this is arm. That's an elbow, just to differentiate it. And this is my hand. So this is my bicep. Here's my tricep. Whenever I flex this, here's my bicep now, shortens. It was originally this long. It is now shortened. And it's also thickened. So it was originally that tall. Now it's this tall. And then if we look at my tricep, it was normally this long, this wide. And then since we extend that tricep, you'll see my arm like this, thumb. Now maybe here's my elbow, and now this is my tricep all right here. So now my tricep has extended from where it originally was. And then this idea of elasticity, once we move back from here to here, so we extend our arm, we go from this, we flex our arm here, and then we extend it. Those were those movement patterns from last unit. So as I flex my bicep, I'm going to contract it, shorten it, and thicken it. At the same time I'm flexing my bicep, I'm extending my tricep. And then with both of these, we want to go back to original position. So we want to relax that bicep and then put this tricep back into normal position. So those are your 4 properties of muscle. Right here, this is an example of skeletal muscle. But every single one of the muscles, both skeletal, cardiac, and smooth, have these properties. So one more time. For the properties, excitability, the ability to respond to a stimulus that's this electrical impulse, this nervous impulse. Once you do that, if you have this strong enough electrical impulse, then you can contract this muscle, which is this shortening and thickening. So that was this example, this bicep up here. Let me change colors. This bicep up here is like this, and now it is shortened and thickened. Same thing. As my bicep is flexing, I have to extend this tricep, so my tricep was that long, and now you can see it is way longer. Both of these want to eventually return to normal position, and that's this idea of elasticity. So excitability, contractibility, extensibility, and elasticity. Okay, we'll stop there. Short video.